Okay, I think we will get started then. Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Congratulations again on receiving the MOAPIA Fiscal Year 21 Community Grant. I am Lee Lei, the API Grant Manager for the Mayor's Office on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs here in the district. So I wanted to welcome all of you on behalf of our office to our fiscal year 21 post-award orientation. So today we are really excited to have Director Ben Guzman, Director of Mayor's Office on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs, Director Ngọc Trinh, Director of Operation, Henry Trung, Program Manager, Jessica Hunt, Attorney Advisor from Office of Disability Rights, Landon Jones, Special Assistant from Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. So I wanted to walk you a little bit through our agenda, and we are going to have introductions from MOAPIA, ADA requirement training, introductions from all of our 9 fiscal year 21 grantees, timeline, next steps after this meeting, report requirement, language access, partnering and collaborating with MOAPIA, and we'll wrap up with open forum for discussions. Okay, so firstly, I'd like to get you a little bit about the grant rules. So all attendees will have opportunities to leave questions in the chat box during the presentation, and we will attempt to answer all questions as they come up. And this presentation will be shared in a follow-up email once made available. And at the end of the presentation, all grantees as well as attendees will be unmuted during open forum for discussions. So for any of you who are not familiar with WebEx meeting, for the chat box, when you look at your screen at the bottom right, you will see the chat icon, and when you click on it, please choose the panelists as recipients for the panelist members. So you can see when you look at send to or to drop down list. Then you can type out your questions and hit enter on your keyboard. So I'll go ahead to turn it over to our Director Ben Guzman for a few words.
Yes, thank you so much, Lee. Welcome, everybody. Again, I'm Ben Guzman. I'm the Director for the Mayor's Office on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs. So on behalf of the Mayor, on behalf of our team, Team MOAPIA here, I wanted to thank you all for coming. And more importantly, I wanted to thank you all for your partnership. You know, it's a great group of grantees that we've been able to identify for this year. We include some of the organizations that we've worked with many times over the years. We have new grantees. So I think it's a really great mix of people. And it couldn't have come at a better time. You know, I think I'm trying to come up with new and inventive ways of talking about the pandemic, and maybe I'm just tuckered out. But I mean, we all know what's in front of us. We all know the impacts that that our public health emergency status has had on our communities. And one of the things that we are going to rely on you most for is your partnership with our communities. You know, and the ways in which you are able to serve our residents and do the things that we're not able to do. So, you know, it's, as I've said before, the only certainty in these times is uncertainty. And so if there's a time for us to be with folks in these uncertain times, we're glad that it's you. So my door is always open. If you have any questions or concerns, we have a great team here at Team MOAPIA that is going to be supporting you through this grant program. But that's all I have to say. So again, congratulations for being part of our grant program, and we look forward to working with you. I'll turn it back to Lee.
Thank you, Ben. So now I'd like to introduce Jessica Hunt, attorney advisor from Office of Disability Rights for ADA training. Since Jessica is not staying with us for the whole training, for the whole orientation, and for any question that you might have relating to ADA, please leave your message or questions in the chat box, and we will try to address them after Jessica's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee. Good afternoon, everybody. Could we go to the next slide? Awesome. So as Lee mentioned, my name is Jessica Hunt, and I am the attorney advisor for the DC Office of Disability Rights. And we are the district's Americans with Disabilities Act compliance office. So what we do is we make sure that any entity who receives district funds, so any business who receives district funds, such as grantees like yourself, know about their obligations under the Americans with Disabilities Act and other disability rights laws. And basically what this means is that if you operate with government funds, you have to make sure to the fullest extent that it's feasible that people with disabilities can access whatever programs or services that you may be offering. And what that means is basically you have to offer the same customer service and the same opportunities that you would offer to people with and without disabilities. They have to receive the same access to your programs or services or anything that you would offer. And one thing that I'm noticing that this slide that I'd like to throw in here, you may be wondering who does that mean? You say I have to offer equal service to people with disabilities, but who are these people that you're talking about? The ADA has a very specific definition of who people with disabilities might be, and I'll spare you the legalese, but what I will say is that it's anyone with a physical or mental disability that limits them in any major life activity. So what that basically means is that it's things you would think about, like seeing, thinking, hearing, breathing, talking, walking, those sorts of things, but also things that if your body didn't do them correctly, you might be impaired in some way. So if you have an employee or a constituent who visits your office who has cancer, and they, particularly this is true in the employee arena, and they might request like a more flexible work schedule because of their medical appointments, would actually be considered a person with a disability under the ADA. So you don't necessarily need to go through the analysis time to determine who would be a person with a disability and who would not as a grantee. What you basically need to do is offer each person who comes into your office the same type of service and the same opportunity to access your programs. Okay, next slide. So when you are trying to determine whether a person with a disability should have the opportunity to access your program, so if you have a program that you're offering to people and you have certain qualifications for people to be able to be a part of that program. So I'll use an example that most everyone knows about. The Department of Parks and Recs, for example, has a lot of pools that they operate and classes that they teach for district residents. Some of those classes are taught even by grantees. And for a lot of those classes, especially swimming classes, you may have to meet certain qualifications, such as swimming 100 meters or knowing how to float or being comfortable with water. Well, a person with a disability should be able to attend those classes just like anyone else, as long as they meet the qualifications. So as long as they can meet the qualifications for the program, they should be able to attend. Even if there are special classes designated specifically for people with disabilities, they should still have the choice as to whether they want to attend the typical class or that for a person with a disability. So they must have equal access, they must have equal benefit, And a person can't be screened out just because they have a disability. So, for example, if you are offering a program to someone, and a person is blind, and you are going to offer a PowerPoint presentation, let's say, and that person can't see the screen for the PowerPoint presentation. So they request materials beforehand or afterwards via email so that they can see what you're presenting to the rest of the group. You can't say, well, I'm sorry, I can't provide that to you because the only way I'm providing it to the rest of the group is during the actual presentation. That would be screening that person out just based on their disability. When someone asks you for materials in the alternate format or any other sort of reasonable accommodation, you have to work to figure out a way to meet them where they are and offer them, again, equal access to whatever services you provide. And then this last one is particularly important to grantees. Sometimes you may be in a physical space that's not entirely accessible to, say, people with mobility disabilities or other sorts of physical disabilities that may make it difficult for them to get around. And that's okay. The district government is not asking you to change the entirety of your space. However, if you're offering a program for everyone in the community to attend and a person with a disability cannot attend based on the location, you may want to consider, especially if you're using some of your funds that you received as a grantee to host this program, changing the location so that everyone in the community can visit. Or if you're a grantee and you're wondering, hey, our building is sort of accessible, but maybe our bathroom is not, what could we do to make it accessible? ODR actually helps with that sort of thing. We can come out to your location and look at your space and see what you may need to do to make it accessible and try to help you look for programs that would help you accomplish that goal. That being said, if you are currently located in a building that's not physically accessible, as long as you figure out a way to offer people with disabilities access to the services that you're providing everyone else, you don't necessarily have to change the layout of that particular building. But if you want to, or just want to know what is accessible and what is not, we can certainly help you with that. Next slide. All right, so I talked about this a little bit. I jumped the gun. When we're talking about people with disabilities and what they might need to participate in your programs, I've said that if they need something like materials in a different format or physical access or accessing things a different day maybe than others, these are types of things that you can provide to them, and they're what's called reasonable modification. So a modification under the law is anything that any way that you can alter the way that your programs or procedures would typically work for people without disabilities to ensure that a person with a disability can participate. And it's very specific to each person. So just because you may have encountered one individual who is blind, who may be requesting materials from you a certain way, that doesn't mean the next person you see who has the same disability would be requesting the same thing. No two people with disabilities are alike, and their requests for accommodation or modification are very specific to that individual. So keep that in mind. When someone is asking you, or a different type of communication or a different way of doing things, the next person with that same disability may not ask for the exact same thing. Next slide. And I guess that's all for me, but I did want to, because I sort of ran through things quickly, I did want to also offer you my email address and direct phone number in case you wanted to talk about this some more, because that's only a few slides. And if you had questions, if anyone ever comes into your programs and asks for a reasonable accommodation and you're not sure what to do, or you want to seek out ODR's help on how to best serve people with disabilities, people who are blind or deaf, you can certainly reach out to us. So I'm going to put my email address in the chat box for everyone in case you don't have any questions right now. And that would be all for me.
Thank you, Jessica. So everybody, if you have any questions, please leave it on a chat box and select panelists as the recipients of your fan message.
Does anyone else? Does anyone has a question for Jessica? Because she's not going to stay until the end with us, so we will let you ask any question about ADA at this point. Can everyone hear? Could everyone hear her? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any question about ADA.
Flawless job, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thanks so much for having me.
You were so good that nobody needed to know anything further.
Well, I'm glad to know I did my job well today.
If at any time that you have any question or need any support from Jessica or her office, you can address the question to us and we'll forward to her.
All right, thank you, Ngọc. Thank you, Jessica. So I think let's move on to the next part then.
Thanks.
Okay. So so now I would like to go through this list and have each fiscal year 21 grantee share brief information about your organization and your proposed programs. This is a great chance to hear more from other grantees and perhaps identify opportunities for collaboration. So let's start with Asian American Lead.
Hi, folks. Hi, this is Akil Fora. I'm the Executive Director of AA Lead. Our nonprofit supports low-income and underserved Asian American Pacific Islander youth with educational empowerment, identity development, leadership opportunities. The MOAPIA grant will support our DC AAPI youth program that includes the after-school and summer programs, mentoring program, tutoring program that provides a nurturing environment, culturally sensitive guidance, and positive alternatives for our API youth. Thank you. Glad to be on the call.
Thank you, Akil. So let's move on to Asian Pacific American Legal Resource Center.
Hi, this is Nazneen Sethi. I'm the Executive Director of the Asian Pacific American Legal Resource Center. We are a legal program that is based in DC. We provide legal services to the low-income Asian Pacific Islander communities residing in DC. We do primarily immigration, family law, and we do some housing work with the tenants at Wallach House and Museum Square. Our grant for with MOAPIA is to provide services, legal services, to the low-income Asian Pacific Islander community that resides in DC. Thank you.
Thank you, Nazneen. So let's move on to Asian Pacific Islander Domestic Violence Resource Project.
Hi, this is Kritika from Asian Pacific Islander Domestic Violence Resource Project. We are so excited to receive at the FY21 MOAPIA grant. There are a couple of things that we do here. A MOAPIA grant, which includes our Art as a Voice event, which is performances by survivors, and it's an amazing space. We are also using the funding to disseminate our newsletter every other month. We are developing a safety planning resource, which will be then shared in trainings with two community-based organizations in the DC region, and we will be using to develop social media posts for APA Heritage Month and Pride, and also create a panel discussion for Pride. So these are some of the things we're doing, and also Pride we will be doing an Instagram live conversation with queer API-centered organizations. So we're excited to work with many of the fellow grantees on some of these in terms of partnering. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kritika. So let's turn it over to Chinatown Servicing.
Yes, this is Shirley Wu with the Chinatown Service Center, and are going to continue our social service work, providing social services, especially to the Chinese immigrants who lack English proficiency. And we're also starting again with our Zoom classes for English classes and citizenship. And we look forward to working with the other grantees because we do a lot of referrals, and they've been a great help to us, as well as MOAPIA. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Let's pass it on to HPIDC.
Hi everyone, my name is Chosun. I am a project coordinator with Hepatitis B Initiative of Washington, D.C. We are so excited to receive FY21 grant, and we look forward to partnering with all the grantees. HPIDC provides free hepatitis B and hepatitis C screenings. We have provided free screenings in D.C. for 10 years. Around 4% of people were tested positive for hepatitis B and 2% for hepatitis C. 9 out of 10 people with viral hepatitis do not know. Therefore, early detection is very crucial to prevent from liver cancer and save lives. Today, I saw exciting news. The 2020 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine will be awarded jointly to 3 scientists for the discovery of hepatitis C virus. We have a hybrid screening model with online registration form on our website, and we're also starting to provide in-person free screenings in DC Chinatown starting this October. Any of you interested, please contact me or Lee. We'll be happy to come to your site and provide free screenings. Thank you.
Thank you, Chosen. So let's turn it over to Housing Counseling Services.
Hi, thank you. We're delighted again to be a grantee for MOAPIA this year. Housing Counseling Services is a nonprofit organization here in Washington, D.C., and we provide tenants, homebuyers, and homeowners education, counseling, and direct services. I am Sue Chang. I'm one of the program directors at Housing Counseling Services. The project that we're working on this year with MOAPIA includes outreach and direct services for DC API residents, including tenants in Museum Square, Warlock House, and other API buildings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue. So everyone, let's welcome our brand new grantees, reaching all HIV Muslim in America.
Good afternoon. My name is Khadija, and I'm the founder of Rahma, which means mercy in Arabic. It's an acronym for reaching all Asian Muslims in America. I want to thank you for providing us with the grant. We're excited to do the work. Our main goal is to do work on HIV, human genital mutilation / cutting, FGM/C, sexual health, and violence. And we do the education, advocacy, and empowerment. We work with South Asian population here in DC and across the nation, and we really tried hard to reach populations that might have a hard time with this information and trying to provide accurate information in a safe environment. With this grant, we're going to educate South Asian women and girls and of South Asian descent in DC. It's called the MySis program, so My South Asian Sisters, and educate them on sexual health, diverse needs, healthy outlook on body positivity, advocates against FGM/C, and gender-based violence, address HIV stigma, and provide comprehensive health education to their peers. And we're going to have a really strong social media component, we'll make videos, raise awareness, and also we'll have some extensive training that they can then go back to the community and educate their community. And our goal is to work with ages 16 and up. So that is our main goal. So thank you.
It's good to know. Thank you, Khadija. So let's turn it over to Uptown Community Initiative.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We're thrilled to get the grant from MOAPIA. Uptown Community Initiative is a nonprofit organization that works to celebrate the history of our commercial corridors on Upper 14th Street and Kennedy Street Northwest. And we support a strong and thriving inclusive commercial corridor. With this program, which we're calling Staying Open for Business. Our goal will be to retain the small business owners and to help them weather the pandemic and the oncoming recession. We're going to be conducting some very targeted outreach and doing as much one-on-one technical assistance as safety guidelines will allow us to help them get funding to keep their businesses alive. But we're also going to work on the customer, on the demand side. We're going to build customer confidence and try to increase that foot traffic that has greatly diminished and improve sales for our small business owners. So thank you again.
Thank you, Uptown. So let's pass it over to the last one, Washington English Center. It sounds like Washington English Center is on mute. So if you're not going to share or about to share any information about your organization, so we can do it via email. Okay, so I think we can move on to the other parts then. So I'll go ahead to turn it over to Director Ngọc Trinh to talk more about the timeline and budget restrictions.
Thank you. Can you turn on to the next page, please? And before I start, I would like to give the floor to Landon John. And do we have someone from MOAPIA as well? Do you want to say a few words?
Hey, Knock. Actually, Simi did her presentation about an hour before you guys did today. And it seems like it went really well. But definitely thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Landon Jones. I serve as the Special Assistant in the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, working specifically with our grant-making agencies and a little bit of everything else in between. Naturally, I believe some of you all were working together right now by way of the DC Hope Grant. And so I just naturally want to extend my congratulations to you all again for being a continued partner with Mayor Mirabal's administration, and more specifically with the Mayor's Office on Asian and Pacific Islander Affairs, especially with everything that's going on, that has taken place with COVID this year, COVID-19, and actually too, some of the racial discrimination that has taken place in the Asian Pacific Islander community. I'm always thankful to know that this community not only exists in the city, but has been a very strong focal point in ensuring that the city is moving forward at all times. And I know that you guys are in really great hands with the Asian Pacific Islander team, with Director De Guzman, with Associate Director Trin, with Lily, as well as with Henry. So I'm just naturally excited to see all the great work that you all are going to do this year.
Thank you, Landon. I want to cover the grant timeline, the important milestone that I want you to remember this year, due to the fact that we sent the award a little later than last year. So the grant agreement signed will be pushed back a little bit. So we are shooting to get it done on the 13th of this month. The work should start right away. So 60 days after the acceptance of the grant award, we'll go by the grant agreement signing. If the project has not started, you are required to inform us in writing on what's going on, what happened, and why there is a delay, and what is the expected date of the start for the activities of the project. 90 days are in, and if the grant has not been, the funding has not been spent, then we'll look into it to see if there is any excessive delay that is not justifiable and then we reserve the right to terminate the grant if needed. So communication is very important. We ask that if you run into any challenge or if you have something that caused the delay, to let us know as soon as possible. I think we already have everyone here for the ADA training, so I'm not going to cover the ADA training deadline anymore. We will reach out to you to schedule the bi-monthly check-in. But if we see that some grantee or any grantee that needs to check in more often, then we will do so on as needed basis. The grant disbursement will be done twice. The first 50% will be sent out in January of 21, and the second disbursement will be sent out in June of 21. And this is with the condition that that grantee follow all the instructions and submit the grant reports as required by the grant agreement. If you need to, a lot of time there is a need to reallocate the grant budget. If there is such a need, you need a written approval from MOAPIA. And the last date that you can do it is by June the 30th. So keep that in mind, and you only have one time to redo the budget. So think ahead and plan ahead on what needs to be done halfway through to see if you need to put in a request to reallocate the funding. So that's it in terms of grant timeline. If you have any question, type it in the chat box. We'll save it for the last Q&A session, the last section of the training. Next slide, please, Lee. I'm sorry. Yeah, restrictions on grant budget. The budget cannot be spent on lobbying, entertainment, food and food-related items, gift cards, sub-grants, donations, and paying participants. We have seen, well, not in this grant program, but we have seen another grant program that we administer where people want to buy gift cards. That's not allowed. Paying participants is also not allowed. You can pay a contractor, a subcontractor, or a consultant. That's fine. And another thing that is not listed here, but I want to remind you, it was listed in the RFA that only maximum 15% of your budget can be spent on indirect cost. So those are some of the restrictions. And as much as we have said about food-related items, we still sometimes get receipts where people send in items like plates and utensils. Those are not billable to this grant program. With that, I am going to pass on to Henry. Next slide, please.
All right. Thank you, Ngọc. Hi, everyone. So in terms of our grant budget and work plan adjustments, as noted in the grant notification letter sent out in September, you've had about more than a week to adjust your plans according to the grant amount. The first draft of that will be due to MOAPIA tomorrow, Tuesday, October 6th. And then we will work with you to make any additions or adjustments and then finalize the plan into Zoom grants on this Friday, October 9th. And then we look forward to signing the agreements with everyone on Tuesday, October 13th. And then new for this year, we have two reporting metrics that we ask everyone to add to their work plan. Will be the number of LEP and NEP residents served, and then the number of DC government and MOAPA events you participate in during the grant program. I'll explain more about both in the next cycle, in the next few slides. I'll pass it back to Lee to talk about the reporting.
Thank you, Henry. So before I begin, I do want to thank everyone for working really hard on the updated budget and performance plan. Once we receive everything, grantees should uh, be in touch within this week with any questions or feedback from our office. So this period of this grant begins on October 1st, 2020, and terminates on September 30th, 2021. So please note that we reserve the right to withhold any payment if grantee fails to correct any deficiencies within a reasonable time frame as determined by Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. And grantees will submit all report through Zoom Grant, and report are due quarterly. So for a quarterly report, normally grantees should receive a friendly reminder with instructions and updates about 3 weeks before the due. So you don't have to worry about that, but make sure that you have a look on your mailbox. That's it. Zoom Grant online portal includes the following features for grantees, and I believe that all of you are already familiar with the tabs that we created. We try to uniform everything, so there's nothing much to be confused. So there are only 2 parts that you should pay attention for: quarterly reports, which are proposed plans, and quarterly reports, where you can enter your numerical updates and supporting documents. And there are 3 required documents that grantees need to prepare and upload on Zoom Grant, which are financial reports, narrative reports, and program supporting reports. So I'm not going to go over too details about this, but for new grantees, I will share with you as much as I can during our first bi-monthly check-in. So again, this is not something that you really have to or need to worry about right now. So yeah. So for site visit, to monitor the performance of grant program, and an agency designee will conduct periodic site visits to monitor the implementation of the scope of work, grant terms and conditions. And if there are any events, please do invite us out. This year we want to schedule a site visit early, so we are visiting you at your peak program activity time. We want to see your program in action, so please send us dates of any big event that are upcoming. So please also display information about the Language Access Act of 2004 at your office, which Henry will talk about soon. So for final report, some of you might already know that grantees shall submit the final report to the grant manager, which is me, by October 15 at 5 p.m. And it's going to be at the same time with the Q4 quarter 4 report, so please plan accordingly. And the report should summarize descriptive summary of entire year's performance, including, if applicable, reasons for not meeting of performance targets or changes made in targets. And this is mentioned by earlier. So if you're not sure or you forget about that, please let us know. And the second thing would be specific problems, if any, for entire year, and lesson learned, as well as additional collaboration with other organizations serving the target populations and success stories. So also make sure that you include a lot of pictures. We love pictures, so please do that if you have any physical or in-person event. So I'll go ahead to turn it over to Henry for language access.
Thank you, Lee. So for language access, we work in conjunction with the Office of Human Rights to carry out the law and the enforcement of it. So according to the DC Language Access Act of 2004, the purpose of the act is to provide greater access and participation in public programs and activities of the districts to the district's LEP and NEP constituents. You can find more information and the whole act at ohr.dc.gov. Next slide. So who is covered? So as grantees or contractors of MOAPIA, you are covered under the Language Access Act. And for the grantee parts, it says that any district, government agency, department, or program that furnishes information or renders services and programs or activities directly to the public or contracts with other entities, either directly or indirectly, is covered under this act. Next slide. So for some compliance requirements, any grantee that provides services is required to collect data on encounters with LEP and NEP customers and report this data to MOAPIA on a quarterly basis. You are required to provide oral interpretation services via a qualified telephonic interpreter, in-person interpreter, or using your bilingual staff, and then translate any vital documents according to the same standards required by MOAPIA. And you can find this out on by looking at the Language Access Act. And after this meeting, we'll also send you a lot more resources on this. And then for any front public-facing staff, you're required to train them on train personnel on the public access and compliance requirements, and certify in writing that the Language Access Act compliance requirements will be satisfied, and also display the multilingual signage at your public-facing locations. Next slide. So, for data collection, what is new this year, as I mentioned before, is that you must collect information on the languages encountered, the number of encounters per language, and how the interpretation was provided, either by phone, in-person interpreter, or bilingual staff. OHR also has a list of recommended providers for language access services that you can use. You can find out more information about that on their website also. Next slide. Oh, and I'll pass it back to Ngoc to talk about collaboration opportunities with MOAPIA.
Akil from A-Lead asked if we will share this deck to participants, and the answer is yes. We will share this, and then we also have a recording of this training. Anyone wants to refer back to this presentation can also access the recording as well. Here is some example of how we can collaborate. We would love for you to attend as many events as possible, the mayor's events and MOAPIA's events. And the reason is that these are opportunities for you to be seen and heard. You are going to be there not just representing your organization, but also representing the community that you serve, and your voice speak up for them as well. So we would like to see you at this event, and they are also opportunities for you to advocate for your organization and the community that you work with. Another reason is these events often have a lot of good and fresh off the press information that is helpful for your community, and we would like you to receive the information so that you can in turn pass on to the network of clients that you work with. So another example of how we can collaborate is constituent services. So we, both MOAPIA and you have cases that we work on. If you have any cases that you think we could be of any help, feel free to reach out to us and ask for assistance. Likewise, when we receive cases that we think would be relevant to refer to any one of you, we will be sure to do so that we can make sure that the issue is handled by the best expert in the area. Outreach and education is another area where we both can help each other a lot. If you have workshops or events where we can attend and speak on any topic, or just generally be there to deliver greeting from the mayor's office, we would love to get an invitation from you. Eh, Also, we would love to co-host whenever you have an event and you want us to co-host. Sometimes we can help to book a venue in our building because we are the co-host. So that way you don't have to pay for the venue. So that's another way to collaborate. It goes without having to say, but I say it anyway. You are the trusted gatekeeper and messenger in the community, so we look to you to help pass on the information and get the information out to the community. A lot of time our team work hard to outreach. For example, the census is the latest example. Our team did a lot of outreach, and we help counted a lot of people, but still we look out to our grantees and a lot of community-based organizations in community to help reach out to those that we fail to connect with. So it's very important that we work together on outreach education. We also can work together to raise everyone's awareness on the cultures of the community we work with. I know that we have a new community this year from the Muslim, so they're specialized in working with the Muslim residents of the district, and we look forward to learning a lot from them. We can do this by, so we can help increase people's awareness by workshops or dialogues or cultural events or blogs, and both you and MOAPIA can help amplify the messages that we put out. So let's be sure to plan ahead and inform each other in advance on what we plan to do so that we can support each other. Internship and volunteer program. MOAPIA has an internship and volunteer program. If you know, and we always recruit volunteers and interns. So if you know of someone who might be interested, refer them to us. On the other hand, MOAPIA often receive inquiries from the public on how they can get involved with community groups. If you let MOAPIA know how people can be involved, we will direct them to you accordingly. So keep that in mind. And lastly, just be sure to lend your expertise and knowledge in your area. We welcome your input. We appreciate your partnership, and we look forward to working with you. Now, I think it's Q&A session, right, Lee? Yes. Is there any questions so far on any of the parts that was presented?
So everyone, I'm going to unmute all of you, so please feel free to ask questions accordingly.
I will start with a question that was asked of us in one of the phone calls earlier, and I want to share so that others can learn from it. So the question is that we received a small grant. Can it be a short-term grant, meaning that you don't have to do it for the whole year? And the answer is, unfortunately, we have to, if you join this grant program, the grant program is for a whole year. So no matter how small the grant amount is, it is for the whole year, which means that you will still have to receive the grant by installments, once in January, and another in June of next year, and then you will still need to submit a quarterly report and check in quarterly, bi-monthly with our staff. So Yeah, so once you sign the contract, that is, well, those are some of the terms of the contract of this grant.
Hi, this is Kritika from DBRP. I had two questions. One is, you had mentioned earlier about how with the grant we can't pay participants with one of the options you
I'm
were
sorry,
saying.
you are breaking up a little bit. Repeat it, please.
Oh,
Yeah, and also, folks, if you're, I know we've unmuted everybody, but if you're not asking a question and you can put yourself on mute, that would be great. Thank you.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is, we were thinking of paying artists who perform at an event. I guess we could call it. Is there something specific you need from us for that purpose? It's not a huge amount, so it's almost honorarium.
You're breaking up again, so I couldn't get your answer. Did you hear her, Lee, or it's just me?
Somebody was speaking when I was talking, so I couldn't. I don't think you
Sorry about that. Again, folks, if you're not asking a question, please mute yourself. We're having trouble hearing folks. Thank you. Henry, did you unmute yourself? Were you able to hear what Kritika asked?
Yeah, I think it was in relations to DBRP's Art as a Voice program and how they have artists to participate in the event. So how would that classify under our restrictions? Would that be counted? Is that correct, Kritika?
Yes, we would like to pay them an honorarium. They are, but they are technically performing, so they are not really participants. So I'm wondering if you would, if it's possible to, because we in our budget included the honorarium for the artists. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Henry, for explaining, and Kritika for being patient with me. So they can be, so they help with promoting culture, right? Promoting your program through culture, through a cultural event, and so they can be treated as speakers, and
Okay.
so it's okay under this grant.
Great, thank you.
Presenters for your event. You said you have two questions. Do you have another one?
Just the other one was if we could get a list of fellow grantees and their contact information in case if we wanted to collaborate with some of them specifically, we could reach out.
Sure, I can share with you after this meeting, Chris.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Akil Vor at AA Lead. Apologies if this is a basic question, but on the call, we discussed a few of the data collection requirements, including some additional matters, including posting. Are those listed specifically somewhere else? So we can follow up on that to ensure that we're in compliance with the grant requirements?
Do we have
What do you mean by posting? Are you talking about like your like social media numbers, or?
There was something, is this Ben? Hey, Ben, it's Akil. There was something that was listed earlier or said earlier about something that was required for posting on our website. Unless I misconstrued that.
Is that under ADA or is it under language access?
It was probably under the language access piece.
Oh, so these numbers are under language access. We're just asking for new. So we're just asking for. Can you go to the next slide, Lee? There we go. Data collection. So we're asking for the languages you encounter when you're working with the residents, the number of encounters per language, and then how the interpretation was provided.
Hi, this is Nazneen, but in our office, do we have to, I believe we have to have the poster with the language access information on it. Is that correct?
Yes. And that will be sent to you in a toolkit.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. That was it. Thank you for flagging that.
This is Kritika again. Are there any specific requirements to the ADA or language access pertaining if we continue working remotely for the next few months? Like, how is that going to be reflected in the work at all?
Everything applies virtually or in person the same way. So if you serve a person an LEP for the new grantee, we often refer LEP to limited English proficient resident as LEP. So for LEP or NEP is non-English proficient. So LEP or NEP, if you serve them either on the phone or a Zoom call, you would still need to provide interpretation the same way or comply with ADA the same way that you serve them in person.
And we know that everyone will be doing a lot more virtual events. So both, if you guys are using WebEx or Zoom, they have functionalities where you can add like a different room. So you can send, you can have a live interpreter there either for the language or American Sign Language. So the participants can participate and
So I'm sorry, this is Nassim again. So with Zoom, I know that there are different levels, and not all of the Zoom accounts do have that capability. At least that's when I was checking into it. And there are different. I think the cost is one of the issues that a lot of us are going to have with that. And then the second thing is, do you like on our website? We don't have language access materials on our website. But is that something like what we have it in our office? Is that something that you want to have on our website as well? We do provide services in different languages, but is that something that needs to be put on our website as well?
So for the website, I would check with OHR on specific requirements because they haven't told us the updates yet for that. For Zoom, it's similar to like the language line service that most grantees are familiar with. So you can use the grant money to pay for that if necessary.
Thank you.
John, are you able to come on? I know that it looked like you had a technical problem before. Did you want to be able to introduce the Washington English Center? I know you put it in the chat. Okay.
Is there any other questions from anyone else?
Hi, this is Ari Pak from AA Lead. Thank you all for all of the information. My question is sort of aligned with Akil's question. I know when we went into all of the closings for the pandemic, there was an additional sort of reporting and tracking sheet sent out as an Excel sheets, and I was wondering if you all can resend out the final formats of all the reports you need for these quarters, just to make sure we're using the right documents.
Sure.
So I will forward it to your email, Ari.
Just so we are on the same page, every grantee is requested to leave two contacts, one primary and one secondary. And whatever we send out, we will send to both, so that if one is away from the office for an extended period of time, then the other can take care of the request.
Thank you so much.
If there is no other question, I think that will be it for this orientation.
All right. So as our wrap up, I wanted to thank everyone and thank our presenters for spending this hour with us, and thank all you all for coming. And we hope this meeting was structured and helpful. And as always, please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or need any help. We look forward to another successful and productive fiscal year. Thank you and have a nice evening.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. So before you go, tomorrow, if you can please turn in the first draft of the revised budget and work plan. Some of you already did, but if you have not, then tomorrow is the first draft due, and then we can go from there, and we will get on the call to discuss what needs to be done if there is anything at all. Thank you, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.